It's time for this week's Here's How. And this week, here's how to kill a camel in 10 different ways. Or 10 different ways to kill 10 camels. You know, because we're not trying to be vets, innit? I get one so drunk that it gets alcohol poisoning. We already know that camels don't drink that often, so you're going to have to sort of force it to drink. So maybe a load of fortified wine in one single setting might be, enough to finish one off. Force feed one a load of sand, it'll probably make forcing it to drink a bit easier as well. But there's loads of sand in there normally around camels and that, so especially in films and that. I don't know about real life, I've only ever seen them in a zoo. But this should be an easy one to do, innit? Just bring yourself one of those little plastic scoops and a pick and mix at your pound shop. Seal its arsehole up with concrete. I know this isn't a new idea, innit? Because I've seen loads of reports of a lot of people getting a lot of sexual gratification out of pouring concrete into each other's arseholes. Now, there's nothing sexual about this though, not between you and the camel. This is just a new way to finish off a camel rather than a couple of people consensually finishing off each other with concrete. Speaking of sex though, you could somehow manage to force the camel to contract AIDS. I mean, why should cats get all the fun and cats be the only ones who get their own, specific type? Let's bring it around for the camels as well, give the camels a bit of love and that. Now, it might be difficult to do because not everything and not everyone with it can pass it on because they're on certain medications, but as long as you discuss this first, I imagine you might be able to organise this. Or, better still, it's probably best to mix this one with a different method just to be sure it works. For example, you could feed your camel an output cold casserole for the rest of its life. It'll most likely lessen how long that particular camel lives for, but this, coupled with the unprotected sex with a possible human who may or may not have HIV, could be enough to shave off even more years from your camel. Instead of getting your camel to play with your friend's dirty worm, how about having one fight a massive snake, mate? It might win, and then if it does, you can decide on whether it's released or if it was simply round one. If it is round one and you've got some time to spare, or simply don't like the idea of an unwitting animal managing to get one over on you by killing your prized snake, then you could force a heroin addiction onto the camel. Just inject it every now and then, or make some form of mask-like apparatus like what sleep apnea people use, and make it so that the heroin can safely be burnt inside, allowing the camel to inhale it whenever it breathes. This would be an interesting one just to see how the camel reacts as well with, like withdrawal symptoms and that. It might be a good one to get the pen and paper out for and take notes on. And just about how a camel copes with addiction in general. For a relatively quick fix though, where you don't have to watch the camel suffer, because you might not, want to watch it suffer, I mean, I don't know why, but I'd suggest the building or rental of a medieval trebuchet. You only get to see the funny part where the camel shrinks as it hurtles off into the distance, right, over the horizon and that, which is supposedly only ever 3 miles away, so it would be interesting to see how far your camel travels. Was your camel difficult to ride? Could you say it was a unaccommodating creature? Well, see just how accommodating it can be, or at least its urethra, and see if it can fit a cooked whitebait in there. Albeit, I reckon this will be a bit of a slow burner, but it is a story to tell the grandkids that their other, posher, richer grandparent isn't going to be able to tell them, so at least you'll always have that over them. Treat it to a little bit of parasailing. There was once a donkey that died in 2011 that used to regularly glide over parts of Russia. It lived to be 18 years old though, so maybe you'll want to do this in a much, much hotter place and for longer stretches of time to ensure your camel never reaches old age. And that's the end of this week's Here's How. Now, if you did enjoy this, if you enjoyed these little, the 10 different ways, maybe I'll make more of these, making the little podcasts that I do every week and I've been for a couple of years. Maybe I'll make them into videos for YouTube. If you want to support this happening, go and join the page and it chucks a couple of quid and I'll know that people are into these. Otherwise, what did you think? I think this is a pretty strong one to start out on, really, with with the AIDS talk and that. But it's a camel and it doesn't exist, so fuck it. And also, this was the first one, a little bit of backstory. I won't do this every time, but a little bit of backstory. This was the first thing I put out on a radio show when I got my own radio show on Threshold FM, and I'm going to be turning the old episodes into better high quality audio, like hopefully this is, because I've figured stuff out, and I'll be re-releasing the podcasts. So for a while, this might be, without joining Patreon, this might be the only way to access some of the podcasts when I do get round to rescheduling them all and re-releasing them all. But if you enjoyed it, fucking send it to a mate and that, or fucking see you in a bit, mate.